Hello everyone, I'm reporting back from the Austrian Championship. Today was round number 2 and I briefly want to share my game with you. It's already pretty late here, around 10 p.m. The round started at 4 p.m. today and yeah, it was all a bit late today, but still I don't want to forget about doing the recap. So I played against Wintager Hannes today. I was black and he's around 2240 rated, so he's pretty good, pretty experienced. He even has won international master norm. So yeah, definitely not an easy opponent. He went e4, I went for c5. Since I wanted to have a big fight in this game, I went for the Sicilian defense with 2 e6 here. Usually I played a Najdorf actually with d6, which after d4, cd4, knight d4, knight f6, knight c3, a6, we have the Najdorf defense. But in this game I wanted to surprise my opponent by playing e6, which I usually don't. Now he went d4, which came as a slight surprise. In his last game he played g3 and then like a slow setup with bishop g2 and short castle, but I was prepared for that and I was actually hoping this would come in the game. But then he went for the open Sicilian and I briefly prepared this Taimanov here, but I usually don't play it and therefore my knowledge is pretty yeah, it's not great here, like my overall knowledge. And then he surprised me by playing one of the main systems now, pretty fast. So I didn't expect him to just change the whole lines just out of nowhere. But yeah, it came and it came as a shock. But still, I kind of knew the line. I was lucky, but later on I got into some trouble, as we will see. So he played bishop e3, a6. This is all theory, and now this pretty new idea with g4, which was, I believe, introduced by Niels Grandelius, strong Swedish grandmaster, and it's actually a very dangerous idea. So now I took on d4, which I still kind of knew. I also knew that b5, I think, is the main line, and after knight c6, queen c6, there are some lines where black takes his pawn on e4. I think queen d2 is the move, if I'm not wrong, b4, and I think white sacrifices the pawn like this, which then often is very dangerous because black is underdeveloped and yeah, white will just castle long. Has these open lines, the open D line, D file, and the open E file, and this tends to be pretty dangerous for black as well. So I went knight takes d4, queen takes d4, and now I went b5, and I'm arguing that in some cases this queen can be a bit misplaced and has to go back in many cases. Long castle, bishop b7, pretty logical, f3, rook c8. Here I'm already intending to, or even threatening to go b4 already, because then if the knight moves, there's queen takes c2 with checkmate. So that's the whole threat with rook c8. That's why he played queen d2. Bishop b4. Now I want to take on c3, ruining his pawn structure, but he still has bishop d4. And until here, I still knew that it was more or less theory. f6. I have to protect this pawn on g7 somehow, but it's not easy to do so otherwise, because if I go knight f6, then g5 would be unpleasant, because the knight has to go somewhere on the rim, which is almost never good. So f6 has to be played here, even though it weakens the king, obviously, and this is something I have to fight for in this game, that my king will not be checkmated in the middle of the board. He went g5, putting even more pressure on this pawn now. Obviously I cannot take still, because then bishop takes g7 would win the rook here. So e5, bishop e3, and yeah, this is what I played. And what I forgot to say now, that h6 was actually the move, which this is like the main line, but in the game I totally didn't remember it, and yeah, after h6, g takes h6, knight takes h6, and then we reach some similar positions, but yeah, I just totally forgot about it during the game. So I went e5, bishop e3, now I took on c3, and then I went h6. I was kind of mixing this up here, these two lines, but now after bishop h3, my pawn on d7 is under attack, rook d8, and here my position is actually already pretty bad here. So yeah, this whole mistake was by playing e5 first and not h6, and yeah, if I would have known that, maybe I could have gotten a better position. But anyway, this was the game, h6, and now he went bishop h3. He could also take here and go something like rook g1. I thought this is also definitely an option, putting pressure on this pawn on g7. So in general, I did not really like my position here. Yeah, but he went bishop h3, which is probably the best move. I went rook d8, and now he played queen f2, which was a huge blunder. He should have just taken on f6 probably, and then just played his position here. I think that now the engine showed that queen f2 is the move somewhere. I think, yeah, this was the line rook g1, which I checked before. d5, this is what I calculated. And I thought that after queen f2, I have queen takes c3 with at least some counterplay. There's always queen a1 check, some perpetual check ideas. But what I missed in the game here is that rook d3 is just completely crushing. This is what I've checked before. And now if queen a1, white can always just go king d2. And the rook on g1 is now protected since it's not on h1 anymore. So this would have been winning. Rook g1, very unpleasant. Maybe I have to go for something like g5. But yeah, even an endgame like this is now, I guess, pretty unpleasant for black. These dark squares are all weak here on the queen side. The bishop can come to f5. So this looks pretty horrible. But he went queen f2, which I was happy to see. And after h6, g5, now his idea, obviously bishop b6 with his pin. But after queen takes c3, now if he takes on d8, maybe this is what he missed. Now I can take on h3. And all of a sudden, all of my pieces are getting into the game. I have rook takes f3 next. He will lose a lot of pawns. And my king is actually now pretty safe since he doesn't have any more attackers. But he went bishop g4, which was a mistake. And after knight h6, now he went bishop e6, which I totally did not see. And later on, then I realized he should have gone bishop e6 right away. And I guess he also kind of forgot about this. But yeah, this would have been the best move. And I'm still in somewhat a dilemma here. What I checked was here, queen a1, check, king d2, take on e6 with check now, important, otherwise the queen would hang, bishop d8, queen d4. I analyzed something like this, something similar like this. But yeah, this is still the best try for black, but white at least has some drawing chances overall. But he went bishop g4 first, knight h6, and now obviously I had a better version than we saw before. But now I went king e7, which again was a pretty poor move. I should have gone for queen a1 just like we saw before, and for the same line with queen d4 takes, and now I have a much better version with the knight being already on h6. I still saw this in the game, but after bishop b6 I only saw e5, when after c3 things did not seem so clear for me because all of a sudden white has a lot of counterplay. But what I totally missed was here I have g4, and then he's in a lot of trouble because his center is collapsing, and all of my minor pieces come into the game now. And also the rook on h8 can be pretty active in the near future. But I went king e7, and yeah, there are a couple of things which I missed here. So bishop takes d8 was what he did, and king takes e6 was my idea. I think now that bishop b3 would have been a move too, if I'm not totally wrong. Yeah, this is what I checked here. And here actually I have to be again pretty careful as black, because now his bishops are still pretty strong. So he should have probably tried this. But he took on d8, king takes e6, and queen b6 was a huge blunder, because now I get to play queen c6, and he loses a lot of time by doing this. There was only one way to hold a draw, which is rook d3 check, which I saw in the game, but after queen a1, king d2, queen takes h1. Here, after queen b6, I thought I can always just go king f7, and my king will be safe here on the king side. But what I totally missed here is that after takes, king g6, rook takes g7 works. And now it's a perpetual, so yeah, white has like queen e7 check, if king g6, queen g5. So there's nothing I can do, this is just a draw. So yeah, this was his last chance, but he played queen b6, and after queen c6, he probably realized that these endgames are always pretty bad too. I have already 2 pawns for the exchange, but probably this pawn on e4 will also fall after something like g4. This pawn on e4 is always a huge weakness. So then he realized he should probably keep on queens, but after knight f7, bishop b6, now he loses again a lot of time, rook c8, queen d2, here I'm threatening checkmate on c2, and rook d2 I think would run into knight d6, with this fork coming here on c4. Whoops, that was wrong. So yeah, that's where he went queen d2, and after knight d6, bishop f2, and now I came up with this move g4, which I think was pretty strong. At first I was only seeing knight c4, which just attacks the queen and looks very logical, but after queen c3 I did not see a way how to proceed immediately. I was thinking about some a5 ideas with b4 and knight a3 to come, but it all seemed a bit slow. And then I saw g4, and I just then I really felt that my position is winning, because if he takes here now, knight takes e4 comes, and my king is actually very safe here, even though it's one of the most active pieces in the middle of the game. But after knight takes e4, I'm just winning. White's king is ultra unsafe, and if queen e2, I always have this fork here as well on the queen and the rook. So this would be just pretty bad. But after rook g1, take on e4, he went queen d5 check. If rook takes g7, I have knight takes e4 here again, and if queen d7, I thought if he takes here, there are a couple of ways to win. Probably bishop c6 is good enough, and after rook e7, just king f5, and this pawn here will be too strong. So the maximum white can get is to end up with a position like this, which is still winning because black has these connected passers. So yeah, he went queen d5, takes, bishop d5, and now rook g7, so all kind of similar, and I still went knight e4, just with the goal to promote this pawn here on the FL, bishop c4, preparing f2. If I would go f2 right away, probably also works, but then after rook f1, he can still reach this opposite color bishop endgame, which of course is also winning. After bishop a2, I'm already 1, 2, 3, 4 pawns up, yeah, so this should be quite easy. But I went bishop c4, rook takes c7, and now f2, and I'm threatening to take a queen here, so he gave the piece. Rook d6 check, king f5, rook takes a6, and here I mean, my previous idea was to just play e4, when this pawn will also decide the game. But then I saw knight d3, which I played in the game, and which is actually a very nice finish. Here my opponent resigned, because if he takes with the pawn, then bishop e6 is a discovered check, and the rook on d7 is falling. If he takes with the rook, I can take with the bishop, and he cannot take back because of this pin here. And yeah, if the king moves, let's say to b1, then I have knight c5 with a fork. So that was a pretty nice finish to the game overall. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this recap of round number 2. I'll hopefully see you again tomorrow for recap number 3. In the meanwhile, you can follow me on my socials, Twitter, Instagram, on YouTube, obviously, if you would be so kind. And yeah, you can check out my website, felixblomberg.com. And until then, I will see you in the next video.